Welcome to the Global WarWatch Network. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the very latest developments in the Russia-Ukraine war. We're focusing specifically on these recent attacks on Ukrainian cities and also the really complex international responses that are, shifting around. Our main source for this is a detailed report from AP News. It gives a pretty clear snapshot of where things stand right now. And our mission really is to cut through some of the noise, give you the most important pieces of information about what's actually happening on the ground, and shed some light on those diplomatic pressures at play.
Yeah, it's definitely a critical moment, isn't it? You've got these military actions, these political deadlines popping up, and the very real human cost. It's all intersecting right now in a way that I think really demands our attention.
You can absolutely feel that urgency. So let's jump right in. The most recent events we're looking at happened overnight, rolling into Wednesday, July 16th, 2025. Russia launched a pretty significant barrage. We know about drone strikes on Vinnytsia, that's in the west, at least 8 people injured there. But it wasn't just Vinnytsia, right? This was part of wider Russian strikes hitting 4 different Ukrainian cities almost at the same time.
Exactly. That's a really key point. So besides Vinnytsia, the attacks also hit Kharkiv up in the northeast. That's Ukraine's second biggest city. And Kryvyi in central Ukraine, which, interestingly, is President Zelensky's hometown. Plus Odesa down south on the coast.
Yeah.
And the scale Ukraine's Air Force reported, it's quite something. They're talking 400 Shahed drones. Those are the Iranian-made kamikaze ones, plus decoy drones, and 1 ballistic missile on top of that.
Decoys, too.
Yeah, the decoys, they're designed specifically to overwhelm Ukraine's air defenses, make them use up resources. All told, across these cities, reports say at least 15 people were injured.
400 drones and decoys. I mean, that number is just staggering. What does that sheer volume and the choice of targets tell us about Russia's strategy right now?
Well, if we kind of zoom out a little bit, it does seem pretty clear that Russia's basic strategy hasn't really changed much. These constant attacks, hitting energy infrastructure, hitting civilian areas. It's not just about wearing down the military piece by piece. It feels more like a deliberate long-game approach. The aim seems to be systematically wearing down Ukraine's defenses, yes, but also depleting their resources and, crucially, trying to break civilian morale. And by extension, perhaps testing the West's resolve to keep supporting Ukraine. It points towards their theory of victory, as some analysts call it.
Right. And facing this kind of just relentless pressure, President Zelenskyy has been very, very clear about what Ukraine needs. He said, and I'm quoting here, "To effectively counter this terror, we need a systemic strengthening of defense, more air defense, more interceptors, and more resolve so that Russia feels our response."
Yeah.
And we're also seeing reports, of Ukrainian recruits training near Kyiv, basically waiting for that promised U.S. military aid to arrive.
And the specific things Zelenskyy mentions, their air defense and interceptors, that points directly to their most critical, immediate need. When you think about the sheer number of drones and missiles they face almost constantly, being able to shoot more of them down is just, it's paramount, perhaps even more critical than other types of aid for the immediate situation.
Okay. And that brings us neatly to a really significant development internationally. U.S. President Donald Trump has now set this pretty firm deadline, September 2nd, for the Kremlin to reach some kind of peace deal. And it's not just a date on the calendar. It comes with a serious threat, possible severe sanctions from Washington if a deal isn't reached by then. Trump has also been pledging more weapons recently, including those vital Patriot air defense systems. Those are the ones really effective against ballistic missiles. This whole package is being described as his toughest stance toward Russian President Vladimir Putin since he came back to the White House about 6 months ago.
Yeah, and what's really interesting here is the reaction to this deadline. It's quite a mixed bag, actually. On one hand, you have Ukrainian and some European officials who seem relieved by the U.S. commitment after, let's face it, months of uncertainty. But there's also this undercurrent, a feeling that the U.S. should be sharing more of the financial cost. And then on the flip side, you've got some U.S. lawmakers and other European officials expressing concern. They worry that this deadline, 50 days, it's quite short, they're worried it might actually give Putin an incentive, an opportunity maybe to grab more territory before any potential talks or settlement could happen.
That's a definite risk.
It is. And we should probably remember, too, that other U.S. ultimatums aimed at Putin in the past haven't always, persuaded him. Oh, and regarding the cost thing, Trump himself made a point of saying that while the U.S. is providing weapons, he believes, quote, European countries are paying for them, which adds another layer to it.
Okay, so that's the U.S. angle. But Europe is also making moves, defining its own long-term commitment. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, she's proposed that the EU should set aside a really substantial amount, 100 billion euros. That's about 116 billion US dollars. This would be part of the EU's long-term budget, specifically for Ukraine. But it's important to note this money is earmarked to help Ukraine's economy, which is obviously war-battered, as it works towards potential EU membership. The proposal explicitly says this money won't be spent on military support. Of course, this still needs approval from all 27 EU member states and the European Parliament. It's not a done deal yet.
Right. And this creates a really interesting dynamic when you think back to that assessment of Putin's strategy. The Institute for the Study of War, for example, they assess that Putin operates on a theory of victory that basically says Russia can win just by making slow, creeping gains on the battlefield indefinitely. And, critically, by outlasting Western support for Ukraine and Ukraine's own ability to keep defending itself.
So the economic aid fits into countering that.
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? How do these different types of aid, the military support mostly from the U.S. currently, and this significant economic aid proposed by the EU, how do they work together? How do they fit into a long-term strategy to actually counter Putin's long game? Is bolstering Ukraine's economy just as important as sending weapons when it comes to breaking that idea of outlasting the West?
Yeah, that's a crucial point. And while we're dissecting all these strategic moves and diplomatic pressures, it's so important to keep bringing it back to the human cost. We can't lose sight of that. This war has been going on for 3 years now. The statistics are just heartbreaking. Tens of thousands of soldiers killed on both sides. And the UN estimates that over 12,000 Ukrainian civilians have been killed just by Russian barrages alone. And all of this is happening along a front line that's enormous, over 1,000 kilometers. That's like 620 miles long.
It really is striking, isn't it? You have all this intense military action, these major international deadlines being set. Yeah. And yet, at the same time, direct negotiations seem completely stalled. There's no public date for any third round of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. And the first 2 rounds, they really delivered, well, no progress, apart from prisoner swaps, according to reports. It just highlights this stark contrast, this huge difficulty in actually translating what happens on the battlefield or these external pressures into any kind of concrete diplomatic breakthrough.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening? I think it really just underscores how incredibly complex this all is. You've got the military reality on the ground, these big political deadlines looming, and massive international aid packages being debated. They're all interconnected. Staying informed about how these pieces fit together, especially as we get closer to deadlines like September 2nd, it just feels more important than ever.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with is this. How might success in this war actually be defined? It's likely measured very differently by Russia, by Ukraine, by the US, by Europe, especially when you factor in the immense human suffering and these varying levels of international support. Beyond the big headlines about deadlines or aid packages, what are the perhaps more subtle signals we should be watching for in the next few weeks? How might these different pressures actually start to play out on the ground or behind the scenes?
That's a great question to ponder. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive here at the Global WarWatch Network. If you found this discussion insightful, please do like this video, share it, and subscribe to the Global WarWatch Network channel. We'd also genuinely love to hear your thoughts and analysis, so please put them in the comments section below. And you can join the conversation with us on social media too. All the links you need are right there in the description. Thanks for listening.